Modes are great for vamps and for like you know, the very typical example is like Miles Davis, that kind of thing. That's like so what, and then that whole song is just in E flat, and then it goes to the key. Sorry, E flat minor, and then it goes to the key of E minor. Right. So that whole song, they call that song and that style of playing music sort of modal playing, because when you solo, there's no chord changes, so you're not really worried about like, oh, I have to make sure I know my thirds and my sevenths. You're more, you know, sticking to one chord, and so you have to make something interesting. And that's where modes really come in handy. So in this case, you would use a Dorian mode. Right, so that would be my E flat Dorian, which means that I'm in the key of D flat, so using D flat notes. Right, so yeah, that would be the quintessential, like, typical place to use a mode. Um, you also have, and other vamps too, like another super common vamp would be like a 2/5 kind of thing, but that just kind of hangs out there. That would be another Dorian situation, because if you're doing like a minor to a D7, you're essentially playing like the 2/5 of a G key, right? So that would be A Dorian or the key of G. Okay, and then other modes would be like if you're playing through changes, like a 3/6 2/5, you know, in the key of C, you might want to incorporate some like modal reference here. So thinking of like a Phrygian, right? Using a Phrygian instead of something else. Although I'm gonna stop myself here, because the reality is I'm trying to like think of ways for you to to use modes, but my reality is I don't like particularly think in modes. I think modes are really helpful to understand and connect the fretboard, but when it comes down to it, I'm thinking of chord tones. And you know, if I want to play a flat nine, I'll just play a flat nine, or if I want to play a natural six, I'll just play a natural six. I'm not thinking like, oh, I must play a mode that has a flat nine. Which mode is that? And doing all these calculations. And so again, that's like kind of where I'm coming from with modes. I find them more helpful to understand music and to learn how chord progressions work, but I don't find them helpful for solo ideas unless you're like hanging out on one chord for the whole time. Then modes can be really helpful. But even then, you're still going to be wanting to think about, you know, your reaching your thirds or reaching your ninths or your sevenths, and you're going to want to be thinking about individual notes rather than a pattern, right? Because that's what really gets us stuck, is thinking we need to learn a pattern for every scale and every sound, and then when we're soloing, we're trying to calculate, wait, which pattern do I use now? But we want to get to a place where we're not really, yeah, we don't have to implement a scale pattern. We want to just be able to play the chord tones that, you know, we know produce a specific result. So yeah, yeah, modes.
So
Modes are
trust the system, basically.
trust the system.
That-
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. I mean trust your ear is really what it is. It's like trust
Mhm.
your ear and trust that you are learning how to identify the chord tones and scale tones that really that you resonate with. And so you might be playing on a vamp like so what or something, and you're just like, I love this ninth, right? So I'm just gonna like milk this ninth. Right? You might just like really decide to favor a certain scale tone, and then when it comes down to filling in the blanks, then modes come in handy. But really, more than anything, key centers come in handy. So just knowing, yeah, knowing that it's a Dorian mode is helpful, but you also know that the Dorian mode of E flat is going to be the key center of D flat. So if you are really embodied in your five forms, where you're not thinking about forms anymore, you're just thinking of D flat key center, and therefore just traversing around the neck to any chord tone you might want to go, you might want to, you know, favor to any other chord tone. So like favoring this ninth, key of D flat, ninth, right? So, um, Yeah, I know. It's kind of complex because we're talking about like a very abstract process that happens like instantaneously when you play, and it takes a lot of training to get there. But it's really great to ask these questions and practice the modes that are interesting to you, but also don't get stuck on relying on the hand positions of the modes, right? Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And also, when if you feel like you're practicing and you have like a specific chord progression or something, like that would be a good inquiry for you. Is like, well, rather than like where should I implement my modes, more think like what should I do with this chord progression, or what should I do with this song, or how should I solo over this tune. Then you'll start to see if modes are really gonna be helpful for you or not.